Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and welcome to the Stewards room, where we'll be taking a look at racing incidents submitted by you guys and trying to make a determination on who, if anyone, was at fault. There's a link in the description to submit your own clips, and feel free to check out the playlist link for more of these videos, specifically the first, which acts as a scene setter. Also, keep an eye out for cards popping up on screen towards the end of each segment where you can vote on who you thought was at fault for each incident. Alright, so first clip, we are in a Voltic, it looks like, on GTA. It's supposedly a staggered start race, which basically means that these are all racing for position, even though that, you know, some cars are quicker than others. But yeah, we've got a Sultan coming up behind us. We're going into the corner, and I mean, that doesn't really look as a difficult decision to me. That just looks like a takeout, frankly. It could have been something to do with GTA physics, you know, a bit of lag or something like that. Didn't hit him on his screen, but for this one, I don't necessarily think that there's any other way to look at this other than it was a takeout. Especially when you look, you know, at it was just whether it was a miscalculation or, if we slow it down, I'm not quite sure what the Sultan thought it could do to get through there. I mean, that was an ever-closing gap as the Voltic was taking its line. You know, it's not really on any kind of differing line or anything like that. And obviously, the point of contact, we don't even need to look at the rules of this. The Sultan is nowhere near close enough to the Voltic to be warranting of any space. There isn't really any space available when you look at that's the apex of the corner, that's the line that the Voltic is on. I don't think there's really that's just flat out Sultan's fault for causing that collision, and then, you know, what happens afterwards is a cause of that. But yeah, there's no sort of, I think that this was submitted just more for a check. Was that really as obvious as it should be? And I think it is. There's nothing that I can think of that I've necessarily missed in this. You guys can obviously let me know in the comments, and the poll will pop up in the top right as well that you can vote on. And you can let me know who you thought was at fault for this. Was it Purple Voltic? Was it the Black Sultan? Or was it just a racing incident? Was nobody at fault for this and it was just one of those coming together things? But I don't think there's something that I've missed with this. I just don't think the Sultan really should have gone for that move because it was never on. But if there's something that I've missed, you guys let me know in the comments, and obviously in the poll if you disagree with my decision. But yeah, a quick one to start us off for this one, because I don't think there's necessarily anything that suggests that anyone other than the Sultan was at fault in this clip for that collision. So next up, GT Sport. We are 4 cars going 3 wide into a corner. That's bold. One goes right around the outside. In fact, there's 4 of them all going quite far into the corner. Again, the notes on this were pretty much the same as what I was suspecting on the previous one. It was kind of a, was this an okay move type deal, rather than sort of, you know, looking at something in particular and wondering either way whether it was wrong. So he obviously goes up the inside, and then the Nissan doesn't really like that move, because yeah, I mean, okay, so we're not looking at this bit in particular, but I did want to slow this down because there's a point at which the Nissan who we're looking at now, who's just been overtaken, he's turning to the left and then he jinks to the right to basically take out the guy who's just overtaken him. There it is. There's that jink to the right. So obviously the Nissan is completely at wrong for that. But was the BMW at wrong in the first place for the overtake down the inside? Now, before we look at it, let's have a look at the rules of racing document, as we always do. So back with the rules of racing, and we're talking about who owns the racing line, disputes over the apex. We've seen this plenty of times before. If the attacker is more than halfway alongside at the apex of the corner, then the attacker has the right to some space at the middle of the corner. If the attacker is less than halfway alongside, then he should be backing out of it, and any collision is the fault of the attacker. If it's half and half, then it's about a racing incident, and both or neither of them are to blame. Also, one final part of it is that the attacker should not have achieved the position of being more than halfway alongside the defender when they reach the apex by carrying too much speed into the corner to make it in the first place. That's obviously called dive bombing. So for this one, obviously, like I said, the attacker has to be more than halfway alongside, coming to the apex of the corner to have claim to that piece of track. And, I mean, even as they're going into the corner at this point, he's level. I mean, this is way more than halfway alongside. If you look at them even here, he's actually ahead. So I don't necessarily think that there was anything wrong here. He's taking a very tight line, and really trying to push this overtake. It's not the smartest line to do, but I mean, the Nissan really should have been braking a little bit earlier and trying to effect a cutback, because the car on the inside is on such a tight line. It's natural that he's going to run wide a little bit or really have to linger at a slow speed around the inside. So, it's not as if when you look at it, it looks like the Nissan is turning in as if the BMW isn't there in the first place. But you can't really say that he was just caught out by the BMW being there, because he was alongside quite deep into the corner, and for me that's on the Nissan to not turn in at that point. We'll see it from the Nissan's perspective. See if he gets a little bit of help turning in. No, he just turns in. I mean, I don't know what he's trying to do there. The BMW is there. He's been there. Let's look at it full speed. He's there well into the corner for the Nissan can quite easily see, I think, coming into this part of the track that the BMW is there. But he just turns in anyway, and then seemingly is annoyed at the fact that he's been overtaken, and then jinks to the right mid-corner to try and take him out, the BMW, which obviously doesn't pay off for him, and I think that's a bit of karma right there. But yeah, for me, like, I don't know what the BMW could have done differently. It was in the corner. Yeah, the Nissan was being a little bit squeezed by the Mercedes as well, but it was on the Nissan not to turn in at that point. Once they'd reached a certain point, it was on the Nissan not to turn in. At least here he should have been straightening up the car to not cause a collision. The collision happens because the Nissan turns in, not because the BMW dives up the inside and is in a position that he shouldn't be. He's more than far enough ahead and alongside the Nissan to be warranting of the space on the inside there. So for me, I would put blame for that collision, that contact, not the second part, but this part. I would put blame on the Nissan for that, not the BMW. But you can obviously let me know your thoughts. The poll will pop up in the top right there. Was it the Nissan's fault for the collision right there? Was it the BMW's fault for going in too hot or too shallow of an angle? I don't really think so. I don't think he did anything wrong there from my perspective, but maybe you guys think differently. Or was it just a racing incident? A nothing thing didn't really happen. Nothing happened. If anything, yeah, if this was a real race, I would probably say it was a racing incident. Not give any penalty to anyone for that until it got to the second part, and then I would probably disqualify the Nissan from the entire race for trying to take out some revenge on the BMW later on in the corner. But it was kind of just a nothing. I think it was a fair enough overtake from the BMW in my perspective, but you guys obviously let me know in the comments and in the poll, as I'm sure you will, because you always do. Alright, next clip, back on GTA in the Pisswasser Dominator, coming around, and oh, he comes out of nowhere. So do we get this from another? We do. Okay, so let's have a look from the other perspective and see what happened. I think this will be a much more telling perspective it looks like we get the overspeed. Okay, so red gets the overspeed by doing the corner a little bit better. Obviously, they're coming up to the finish line here. And they're essentially just both going for the same piece of track. Obviously, yellow waits, but I don't think he necessarily should have done. I think it was just a racing incident, just a coming together. I guess I would probably have to see previous laps to see if this is normal behavior, but it looks like this is the line. This is the way that the corner would be taken normally. From this point on, you're just going to go straight. You're not going to bother going to the left and then curve it around. You're just going to go straight to the finish line. And also it looks like there's curbs on the inside, which the red car was trying to clip to get a bit of extra speed. But this doesn't look like it's out of the ordinary behavior for the yellow dominator to do. And I think red just tries to put his nose in somewhere that is always going to be an ever closing gap. And he's not anywhere near far enough ahead to have claim to anything in there, to be honest. He kind of just, let me slow it down. I think if I was the yellow car in that situation, I wouldn't have waited. And if I was the red car, I wouldn't have been expecting the yellow car to wait for that. There's nothing wrong with trying to go for it. He has the overspeed. If he was if he was a car length further forward than what he is now, if he was in kind of this space, so at least he was, he had a nose somewhere alongside, then I would say he would be warranting of the space. Because like I said, this is just kind of the racing line to go forward like that. There's no reason that he should not be doing the line that he's doing, to just go straight to the finish line. And it's just that the red car tries to force himself into a gap that's always going to decrease and close. So I think for me, this one, I would just put it down to a racing incident. Or you could say that red was at fault for trying to put his nose in too much. You could even say that yellow was at fault, that he should have left some space. But when you look at it from yellow's perspective, it all happens so quickly. He just kind of comes out of nowhere. So I don't know what you could ever expect yellow to do in that situation beyond what he'd already did. And red, you can't really blame him for trying it, but I don't think it was necessarily the smartest decision. So I'm probably torn between, in this instance, because yellow gives him the position, I would probably then give a penalty to red for and reverse the positions again. But I think I would just put it down to a racing incident, and I would say if you were yellow, you shouldn't be waiting in that kind of situation, and you should have just carried on and won the race anyway. I don't think yellow did anything wrong in that respect. So you guys let me know your thoughts. Obviously the poll in the top left will pop up. Was it yellow's fault? Was it red's fault? Or was it just a racing incident, just one of those things? And yeah, it's just something that will happen when two cars are going to meet each other at the same piece of track, and there wasn't really anything that either of them could do differently. Let me know, obviously, in the poll and in the comments down below as well. Alright, so final clip. It's titled Project Cars 2 Mess, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes. We got the Ginetta in front. Looks like he gets out a little bit wide. And then okay. Oh, and then it really is a mess. Okay. So, straight away, the reason that this whole thing happens, really, is that the car in front messes up this corner and goes too wide, gets into the dirt, is slower, and then moves back over to the right. Then they have a coming together because of that. To me, if anything, it looks like red and black just gets out of shape, doesn't allow for the fact that he's gotten out of shape, and tries too hard to correct it, and then just causes more and more nonsense that was unnecessary. And as is always the case, just gets away with it scot-free. So I don't think, as we're looking at it here, is there anything that the white could have done differently? You know, moved over to the right a bit more, but I think in that kind of situation, you're not really expecting, after a car runs wide like that, you're not expecting them to then, you know, jink over to the right so suddenly. So the white does go over to the right to try and effect an overtake, but then it's just that red and black comes back onto the track so quickly. That's the worst movement, I feel. You know, he's off the track, he's going slower, but then he just keeps coming more and more, which obviously catches the white out because he is slower at that point. There's nothing that white can do then to avoid the collision that they have at the back end there. He obviously brakes straight away to kind of stop it from happening, or at least it looks like it. And then again, it's exactly the same thing. This is a perfect example for me of cars being off track and not re-entering the track safely, because when you look at this, they've both been off the track, and red and black does exactly the same thing that he just did earlier and just continues on as if nothing had happened, and, you know, goes straight into the side of someone else, when really at this point he's off the track, he's slower, it's his duty to get back on the track and on the racing line in a safe manner, and when he's back up to full racing speed. So he should have been going right around the outside of the corner, allowing himself to be overtaken because, you know, he's off the track, he's slower, and then gradually picking the speed back up. But instead he goes and tries to be desperate and move over to the left to keep his position, and that's exactly what he did earlier on. You know, he's off the track in this early part of the corner. It's his duty to then re-enter the track and get back on the racing line only when it's safe to do so and when he's got back up to full racing speed. But he doesn't do that. You know, he should be sticking to the left at this point. Also because it's the smart decision. You've gone off wide, you're slower, you're going to want to defend for the next corner, so you should stick to the inside to try and defend. But he gets desperate and jinks over to the right, and that's what causes this whole thing, because there's nothing really that white can do, especially we'll see it at full speed again, to anticipate that he's going to jink over like that. And then again, you know, he's just driving as if nobody else is on the track, and if he makes a mistake or is off the track and slower, he's just carrying on as if it was normal, and then obviously he gets away with it totally scot-free, which is the frustrating thing. So I don't know, maybe I've got myself too riled up on this one, and you guys think differently. Maybe you guys think it was the white car's fault and he should have backed out of it here or something. Maybe it was just, you think it was just a racing incident and nobody was to blame. But for me personally, I would totally be giving the red and black car a penalty. In fact, I'd probably be giving him 2 penalties. No, I don't know how, you know, it would, based on the rules of whatever series it would be, as to what penalties would be applied. But certainly the red and black car here is at fault for causing both of these collisions. Both 2 cars got crashed into, and for me, it was all entirely red and black's fault. But you guys let me know if you think differently on the poll. It'll pop up in the top right and in the comments down below. Was it red and black's fault? Was it white's fault? Was it just a racing incident? You guys let me know your thoughts. It was certainly a mess though, that's true. But yeah, let me know your thoughts about all the clips this week. So that's pretty much it for this episode. You can find in the video description all the info and links that you may need to submit your own clips. And if you'd like to support me, you can do so on Patreon by becoming a YouTube member or simply subscribing and liking the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.